Very nice.
Another l'chaim.
Wow. Wow. Shashnas.
Can I make you one?
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Good pass.
Give you good ideas,
Yeah.
Rabbi
Huh?
Reuben? Give you good ideas, Rabbi Reuben?
No, it's gerecht. He says, you build it now. It's being good.
Quarter of a price, yeah, but even this is the quarter of a price is a lot of money.
I think you're right. Yeah. So,
Is the inspection or not yet?
yeah, Baruch Hashem. Okay. So, since we're a little bit off, what happened is that usually we learn Tuesday the Gemara and Wednesday the Halacha, but because we're a little bit this week and maybe next week, so the Vail, I'm just picking a few things. So my father was here Pesach, and he was telling a story that before his bar mitzvah, the family went for Yechidus. He went for Yechidus with
Before his bar mitzvah?
his bar mitzvah. His bar mitzvah.
Talking about the Pilker?
No, but the Rebbe, my father.
The Rebbe was Rebbe already?
Yeah. My father bar mitzvah is more later. Maybe Chof Aleph, Chof Bet.
So the Bar Mitzvah went dicht.
You want to hear this? And the Rebbe asked, no, you're going to say pilpul for the bar mitzvah? He said, yeah. And the Rebbe said, no, what's going to be pilpul? The Rebbe didn't ask about the mimer. Obviously, he's going to say a mimer. What? No, but then, no, what's going to be the pilpul? So he said, it's the Shaagos Aryeh, and it's about Hesach Hadas, about Kalus Rosh film. You're not allowed to have Kalus Rosh in film. So the Rebbe said, no, so what's Kalus Rosh mean? Yeah, so my father said, I didn't know. I asked my Rebbe, Rabbi Lis. The Rebbe started smiling like ear to ear. The Rebbe said, no, what did Rabbi Lis say? My father doesn't remember the rest. But
the smile of the Rebbe,
yeah,
he
remember. I wondered, I heard the story from my father many times, but I wondered, like, what?
What is a chadon? What the minutes?
Why did the Rebbe ask this question? I thought, the Rebbe once told a story in a Fabrengen in Shavuos. The Rebbe said that he was very close to Rav in Paris. His name was Rabbi Rothenberg. Till today, his grandchildren of this Rabbi Rothenberg, they give a hechsher. There's like cheeses that come, or there's some chocolate from France. Good stuff, and they have a Rabbi Rothenberg hechsher. That was their grandfather.
They're good, big musician, Rottenberg, Abby Rottenberg.
I don't know if he's related. I don't know.
Maybe.
So the Rebbe said they was good friends with him. Once a woman came with a chicken. She had a shaila. The shoich had checked, and there was a shaila. So the Rav looked at the chicken, and the Rav said, if the halacha is like the Taz holds. Azoy and azoy and azoy. So if the halacha is like the Taz, the chicken is kosher. But the Shach disagrees, and the Shach holds Azoy and Azoy and Azoy, a whole different thing. So therefore, if you would say like the Shach, the chicken would be treif. Thomas Rebbe, the chicken is kosher or treif? Here the Rebbe said an unbelievable thing. The Rebbe said, if you analyze the story, there's two worlds. There's the world of the woman, and there's the world of the Rav. The woman had a shayla. What's for dinner? What are we having for supper? Are we having chicken for supper, or we're not having chicken for supper? What's for supper? In the Rav, in his mind, he was like big Talmud Chacham. And this shayla was like a good way to see the difference between the Taz and the Shach. It was not about the chicken. It was not about supper. It was about Torah. It was about Torah, the Metzias of Torah. So I was thinking, like I hear a little kid, saying he learned the Shaagos Aryeh, a pilpul. Yeah, Herr Kalus Das, not Kalus Das. You're having a whole pilpul about the chicken. What's a chicken? Ma's a chicken. You're telling me you're saying a whole pilpul about Kalus Das. Ma's a Kalus Das. Is it a tire? Is it a sushi? Maza Carlos das? The Rebbe asked. It was funny, and he didn't know. But he said, "Ask my Rebbe." Okay, but I figured because my father told the story, I'm going to learn. I realized that the Rebbe's question was not Stam a question, but really Taka is a Shiloh.
It's also the
What's Carlos das?
What happens if you don't have a hand?
What if you don't have a head?
On the right hand, what happens if you have a laugh?
Yeah. The Rebbe used to, apparently, I heard a lot of stories from people that the Rebbe asked.
You probably want to break the tension between him and the kid, because the kid is shivering. Whoa, he's going to test me. Who's going to be? What's going to be? So they have to break it.
But you know what?
Smile.
The question that the Rebbe asked, if you learn now the Shaagos, you're going to see it's not a question. It's a very good question, by the way. It's not a complicated question, but it was a very good question, Dafka, if you learn.
Okay.
The Rebbe asked my father when he was a kid that how come Yosef recognized his brothers and the brothers didn't recognize him? My father
says.
So he said that Rashi says because when they left, they had beards and he didn't have a beard.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rebbe said, "Vos Yosef given him a snagget." He started smiling.
Oh, you fell as the Rebbe. What? Yes, was
No, the Rebbe asked, "Why did Yosef recognize they didn't?" So he said, "Because they had beards, he didn't." So the Rebbe said to the boy, to my father, "Vos Yosef given him a snagget? He didn't have a beard."
Was young. 17.
That was the question. The question was, why did they have a... The answer is because he was a young and he didn't grow a beard yet. I understand. Again, this is a 7-year-old kid. And he said that they had beards. He didn't have a beard. He asked why. But the boy didn't answer right away. My father didn't answer. So the Rebbe said, why? So he didn't answer. So the Rebbe said, Vos, Yosef given him a snagget? He didn't have a beard? It's a simple question. It's again, by the way, this question is similar to the question with Kalas Rosh. I asked you a question. Why did Yosef recognize brother's brother, not him? So you say, oh, because they had beards and he didn't. So why did they have beards and not? So you understand right away the answer because you're an adult. But a 7-year, the Rebbe is asking. By the way, if you think about the brilliant
down to the seicha of the kid.
Yeah, did you understand why they had the beard and him not? Hevanta? Lo hevanta. Lo hevanta.
Right.
You tell me a pilpul the Shaagos Aryeh kalas rosh. What's kalas rosh? It's a tire or a wheel. Maza kalas rosh. You tell me, you know what I mean? So a lot of times the questions that the Rebbe asked were very simple questions, but it was like, do you understand what's going on over here?
Kalat Rosh is not different than Hasach Hadat. I think
so. This is exactly what we're going to. Okay, let's start learning because time is flying. Time is flying. Okay. By the way, no one here has bar mitzvahs coming up, but mitzvah Shem, by your grandchildren, to make sure the Rebbe had a big thing. The Rebbe wanted. I see lately I go to Chabad bar mitzvahs, and sometimes I see the boys are not saying a pilpul. A pilpul, obviously they're saying a maimer. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a pilpul. A pilpul doesn't mean that the boy picks up a paper and says, "Thank you, father, and thank you, mother, and thank you, Bubby, and thank you, Aunt Gussie came from Kentucky." That's not called a pilpul.
That's called a karat.
Yes.
That's not a pilpul. And it's also not, in this week's Parsha, the Rashi says, that's not a pilpul.
Boring.
Arashi, Atoisvis, Aradbo, Aritve, Rebbeinu Yoine, Arosh, Shaagos Aryeh, Akitzois, Reb Shimon Shkop, Reb Chaim Alevi, Brisker Rov. That's a pilpul.
Altero.
You put the sichas. It's very good. There's a lot of good sichas. A lot of pilpulim will put sichas. You don't have to say your own chiddush. You can say the Rebbe's chiddushim. But the Rebbe had an inyan. The Rebbe Mitzvah Bacher should say a chiddush, a pilpul. By the way, Nan Chabad, they call it a shtickle Torah. They call it a shtickle Torah, which means you just say something from Torah. But in the Rebbe's mind, in other words, there was a mole in Eastern Europe, there was this thing to teach a kid what it means to get up, stand up, and to ask a question, to give an answer, and to ask a question, and to give an answer,
to be a public speaker.
Not only stam to say something, but to ask a question and to give an answer, and to slug up the answer and give a new answer. That was the union of a pilpul. Pilpul is a question and answer, a raya, an upschlag, a new answer, an afgeminam. Yeah. And the Rebbe wanted that that the mitzvah boy should say a pilpul. I'm saying that it's important to. Okay. I tell everybody always in Beis Menachem Mendel that it's my biggest pleasure if any boy here gets bar mitzvah, so that I'm going to write for them. I did, Baruch Hashem, a lot of the families over here in the last few years. The Shaagos Aryeh, the Siman before, I did with one bar mitzvah bocher. The next Shaagos I did with another mitzvah bocher. Mendi Shach, when it was bar mitzvah, I wrote his pilpul. It was a Shach Lubavitcher between the Rebbe and the Rav Hutner.
Yes.
There was there was different bochim here that whatever. Okay, anyway. What's called Hesach Chadas? Mordechai, you have the copies? Yeah, okay, very good. The Gemara says over there, a person that goes into the sukkah,
if he's a tiger,
he's going to sleep. The shaila is if he takes off the tefillin. If he wants, he could take off. If he wants, he can leave the tefillin on.
What is the question on How long way?
Okay, exactly. Vim Toimar fragt der Rosh, Vim Toimar eich shines aray muter. Okay, what do you mean? The Gemara says if you want, you could sleep with the tefillin. How could you sleep? Well, they also lasich daite man. It's also to be masich das. The Gemara says it's also to be masich das in tefillin. We learn it from the tzitz. When he's sleeping, he's masich das. Ken said from the words of Rebbe Moshe, which probably means the Rambam, we found the tiritz. The vade hesach chadas lo have elkshem in the kalas roisha b'skoik. That for sure hesach chadas what does hesach chadas mean? Is if a person stands b'kalas roish, skoik b'kalas roish. He's making jokes. He's frivolous. He's bouncing off the walls. He's laughing. If he's standing b'yira, that's not called as chadas. If you're not going to say that the person wears tefillin the whole day. Also, when he's sleeping, there's no chadas. And there is no kalos rosh. You've been on. You heard the beginning, or you're just coming now? Okay, you know where we are. Okay, the first page, the second bit of the big paragraph. He says because there's no kalos rosh. He's not making jokes.
Once he's sleeping, he's
yeah. He's not making jokes. He's not making jokes. He's sleeping.
That's not called Hesach.
Yeah, we'll say soon. He's not allowed to go into bed with his tefillin. We're gonna say like the Shulchan says, Rosh Ben Birkav. He's just sometimes you get so tired, like fakalish, and you don't need to go to bed. You just want to, you go in yeshiva and you want to lay down like this, just for a few minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. He doesn't have to take off his tefillin. There's no hesach chadas, where there's a hesach chadas. So he says no, because there's no hesach chadas means kalos roish, that he's making jokes. He's not making jokes. He's sleeping. He's not making jokes. Look at that jokes. He's not making jokes. That's the shita of the Rosh who brings it from Rabbeinu Yoin. I think that Rabbeinu Yoin is arguing on the Ramban. You see here the second paragraph from the first thing. Yeah. Ramban. The Sefer Torah is Adam Inyan Avelos. Mavia Tur Yerides Mishum Peches. Mavayile Laovel Asuli Daite. Kavan Libel Tefillin Shleisir Daite Mehem. Hilk Chmanach Labiyushav Daite. B'Shav Becher Vespet. Loy Manach Lu. When a person's crying, he's not allowed to put on tefillin. Yeah, but if he's sad and he's crying, he's not allowed to put on tefillin. So he has to calm down.
When he daven, he can't cry.
Not allowed to cry. If he cries, he should take off his tefillin. When a person is crying, he's not laughing. I mean, as I could be tzedreit, he could be bipolar, he can laugh.
The Litvaks can really daven.
So he can do two things at the same time. But I mean, a normal person is not crying and laughing at the same time. And don't tell me that the difference is the difference is if he's already wearing it or if he's gonna put it on. That if it's already on him, as long as he's not gonna make jokes. If he wants to put it on and he's crying, he can't put it on. That's a schwache teretz. You're gonna tell me bebola nichem betfilah. Who adini menichem nami kfar asur nami asur mishumetz chadas. He says anyway. The b'shatz hanochel l'sheich esach chadas sheri oisek menachosan mamash shver. But I never border anyway. Shemash b'sayim Rambam hilkech manachlo hanu ba'afilu b'manochel kvar choylitzlo. I loy manachlo the kamar hainu shem manichem li yisalob ela choylitz was a flush. Says when the Ramban says that Ovel is not allowed to put on film, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to take film and put it on. If he's crying, he has to take it off. Like manachmin, a tarnished trogen can film. It's not a weird film. So he says the machloikis. So the Rosh, which brings the Rebbe and the Ramban, they're not going together. The Gemara says you're not allowed to have hesach das betfilm. The Rebbe says hesach das means you're making jokes. You're making jokes. But Ramban holds no. Even if you're not making jokes, if you're crying, anything, if you're masich das, okay. Taimali alatur. Shavir today has to give it Ramban. Boy the Chaim Siman beis kosov also lishim afil lishinas arik sheikhel yoder. Shem beroise poyde salim sudav yashin shinas arik v'lav es chadas. Shem b'schek kalas rosh. Them divrei Rebbe. Them asasidi arte de sasi adodi. I said I don't understand. The Shulchan Aruch made a mistake. The Shulchan Aruch quoted Rebbe Yoina and quoted the Ramban, and he didn't realize that these things don't click in. How could the Shulchan Aruch have made such a mistake to quote Rebbe Yoina and then quote the Ramban? If you hold like one, you don't hold like the other. What's going on over here? It doesn't make sense.
Give the person a choice. How could the
Shulchan Aruch quote both? But I'm because of Peridal Milchus Tefillin. Mitzvah Mishene Daite Misheves Menachoin Alov Potter Minat Film Shemanichtel Osla Hasir Daite Men Atkan. He says you're not allowed to be Masir Das. See, the Ramban says exactly. The Rambam says exactly like the Ramban. Harei Ein Elu. He's not making jokes. I feel like me not feeling mishmas chadatz. Alma kol kai gab me it's chadatz mikro dai te kediv namban shloike de viri Rebbeinu Yoina. Ma tema latur gam ize sheboir chaim simala matches hetik de viri Rambam helu. Im soise de Rebbeinu Yoina shehetik b'simem memdalad. Again, you bring the Rambam and you bring the Rebbeinu Yoina. You didn't even realize it's a stira. It says, it seems to me, what's the halacha between the two? Kol hasachadas also between. I feel like in a beschik the kalaserish kid Rambam Ramban. Shloik the Rebbeinu Yoina. I pass and he says like Rambam and the Ramban, not like Rebbeinu Yoina.
Also not allowed to.
Yeah, the Seyat the Shrine. Hine al divrei Rosh b'shem Rebbeinu Yoina kosheli. Meine the kalaschadas and all the beschik the kalaserish lachud. And came my chayv the machmish between mishu hasachadas. Come around, Baravuna, Menokas, the Flamed Vav, on the base. Mishmish ze any idea mativ. The Gemara says a person should touch his film the whole time. They shouldn't come. It's like
Not all time.
Not
time to time.
time to time. Okay.
To remind you.
To remind you not to have esachadas. You're supposed to touch your film. That's why a lot of times you go like this, right? You go boom. So why do we do it? Because the Gemara says you should do it. Why does the Gemara say you shouldn't have esachadas? So I don't understand. Even the Balak Messiah Daite, less lumba. Why do you have to touch it? If you're not going to make jokes, it's not a problem. So don't make jokes. Don't make jokes. You want to listen to Jackie Mason? Vibe is noch Shaagos. Don't make jokes now. Don't make jokes. He says, I don't understand the Gemara. The Gemara says you should touch your tefillin. You won't. If you make Chadas means, you're not allowed to stop thinking for a moment that you're wearing tefillin. So you might forget you're wearing tefillin. If you touch your tefillin, you don't forget because you're touching your tefillin. You're not going to forget. But if you say Chadas means he's making jokes, what are you telling me? Touch the tefillin. Don't make jokes. Mach nicht kein jokes. Skandik, you're making jokes. Don't make jokes. So how's the kind? You want to go? You want to have comedy hour? Do it later, not now. But mativa for this mishmush. The Yume, hold on, Shlokish, Shosam, and Vinam Alamitz, Vomer, Rebbe, Allah, Shema Menem, the Shlokish. Shaburi, Dara, Tetafta, also, Echi Ovid, Medara, Lututafta. This is the Gemara sagt in Yume. What does it mean? Pirish Toisves, Chemira, Rosh Gufe. Shem Rebbe Liol, Linya Mishmush Meire, the Chem, the Mashma, the film, Kol Shok, and Chem, Mitzis, Mahesh, the Komen, Bishal Yad, Mashma, the Chim, Mishum, the Pog, the Beberesh, Mashma, Sharash, in Kosovatur, bis, the Chem, Simon, Chofkes, be Mashma, Kol Shok, be Mashma, Bishal Yad, Chim, Vachkem, Sharash. He just went off stam. He's just quoting a Gemara. It's not like critical to understand. He says the derech is that you're supposed to first touch the shalyad and then the sharosh. Why? Because emavirin al mitzvahs. Your hand, one hand is closer to the other hand, right?
And then up.
And then you go up. That's why you first touch your hand, and then no big deal. Anyway, why do you have to have this mishmush? If you're telling, why doesn't the Gemara say, don't make jokes? You want to go to a comedy show? Go ahead. But b'shas you bring film, don't make jokes. If you say like that Ramban, that Hesach Hadas means if you're not thinking about film, Gemara says you have to think about the film. How are you going to remember you're wearing film? Touch it, you'll remember you're wearing film. It says one kash. Peirik Dalad the Sukkah, Rabbanon Veda Vashi, Kol Emes Vashi from Mevorch. With film koi. The Gemara says every time you touch it, you make a bracha. Viele Shatois, schon the bits, but the mashman, I say, daite. Kein because of says about Hamza Kein Poskas of a Trumas Mag and the Muki Yosef, the Kenin Pirishrashi, Shemish Mitsu, Mavorchna, Divri Riverosh, and Makal Bracha. He says, I don't see. The whole idea is not to make jokes. You're going to make a bracha because you're not making jokes now.
And every time you make
and every time. We don't pass in the mishmash you make, but still, leaving that shit. Like, if you're saying the word is that I'm touching the tefillin in order to know that I have the tefillin on me, there. It's the second page. But first, you must have some sushi. El Shabazuya Shlema the Rosh, Pirish, the Rabban and the Rabbalaz B'Shem Rebbe, Shmash Allah Tzedakam Toimet. You could say, by the way, he says a different pshat. You could say that mamashmish doesn't mean to touch it in order to remember not have skadas. You could say a different pshat. Mashmish means if the film fell to the side and he puts it back. So he says, you could say when the Poskim said when you do mishmash you make a bracha, it means something else. The film fell to the side, you put it back. So you make a bracha. The Tosfos says mishmush is in order not to have esachadas. So what does it mean? You touch it in order not to make a joke, and that's how you make a bracha. It doesn't make sense. And the bottom line, what's the meaning of this touching it? Tell him not to make jokes, and that's it. Even the tefillin not sort of esachadas. You should tell Shalom. Shem Yol the Kalos Resh, the Shikha, Vikat Mutter, Lishim Bam, after Mr. said that to him, less than about even the EF Shabashin level the Kalos Resh, and basically Malafte, Rochi Gadav level the Kalos Resh, Ben Tzarech Lamashim, will die to himself. This is maybe the Pshat according to them, when he touches it, he won't have his Chadas. So for Shteitzach, he's not going to have Kalos Resh. Still, he says, I don't understand. Wachinei Chod, I'm in the base the Shabbos. Tana de bishmol jetzt in between the Shabbos and Sheikh. My time at the Rabbe the Omar 5 Adam much between kol shosh like say the item him mitker doke. The Gemara says that Erev Shabbos you're allowed to walk out with your tefillin. Hi, maybe you're going to forget Chas v'Shalom wear tefillin on Shabbos. No, because you're supposed to touch tefillin every moment. You're going to remember before Shabbos take it off. The Altam teacher even the Inis Ella Kalos Rosh. That's lesson by Ken Akati Necha Shemish Chvetz Mishmechecha. The main thing is not to make jokes. If he knows he's not making jokes, he's not going to touch a tefillin. If he's not going to touch a tefillin, he might go out machashech. Amulafim mashik after it's a Shabbat. Chomokum chayla mashram kedesh l'sir daitam. You have the kalas rosh mit kedok. V'di sibdar ke Moshe Baruchem Siman Reishnun Beish Kosav Adam the what the Taneri B'Tzarichin the Hocha Mashma Das L'sir daitam et Tzon Chal Dilsim Mem Dal Mashma. You have the Lomik Esel Das Kalas rosh. Near Elohim Edochi Gam Hurl was la Sir daitam Kalas rosh. Fenzerchem Tom Salka V'Shabbos. In Talmud Dvorim, Ulu Kivin Lamash Kasafti, L'Shat L'Shem Lamash Ma'ochi. Okay. Ava Makom Mokem, Pidi Shari V'Rosh, Rochek Mepshat Asugya. He goes back. So he said maybe a little bit of a pshat in the Rosh and the Ben Yoina, but he says the bottom line is, I don't like the in the Rosh. Sharei, Mitomed, Gabitzitz, Yalfinen, Shalo Yasir Dai Temehen. Because the Pasuk says, Loheal Metz Tomid, and the Shail is what's the extra word of Tomid? What's the extra word of Talmud? So what is a mashma? Mashma. L'shekwal mitzitz shal mitzchet. Gzeres hakosofu. V'lo mishum gzeres shem yavel lekalas rosh. When we said the whole thing of it, right? The pasuk says that Aaron HaKohen and the Kohen Gadol, every Kohen Gadol, should not be Masich Das from the tzitz. And we said, Madach the tzitz has one time Hashem's name. So the Tefillin Shalosh Yad, they have 26 times each one Hashem's name. Kol Shkem Kavachemer, that you have to not have Hesach Hadas. He says, what do you think the Torah is telling the Kohen Gadol? That he should stop telling over jokes in middle of Avodah? The Torah is saying he shouldn't stop thinking about the tzitz. That's probably what the Torah is saying. Void Koshali. The Kosev Rachman gave it tzitz Tomid. If you're going to tell me the Hesach Hadas means he's making jokes, he's frivolous. Many to hold only b'shas avodah he's allowed to wear tzitz.
Otherwise, you'll Masir Da.
No, because it's also because the shilas of Kohen Gadol is a lot of weird begodim shloris avodah. Maybe other begodim, yeah, but the tzitz is whatever. So there's a lot of gedolim hold that. A lot of gedolim Rishonim hold that the tzitz can only wear b'shas he's doing the avodah.
Kohen Gadol tzitz.
Yeah, and only b'shas avodah. But the Kohen head your channel of tzitz shari b'kalos resh b'shas avodah. Also not. I feel a man over the Rebbe. I make the shafilo shalav b'shas avodah sharalani tzitz alav mekomak mkoshli. Lama ledas kalos resh mishum tzitz al mitzvah. Tepe kloy the malabach osli line kalos resh b'beis hamikdash min haTorah. He says, if you're telling me that Hesach Hadas, not having Hesach Hadas means not to make jokes, and without the tzitz, you're allowed to make a Moshe of Leitzin. You're allowed to have Kalos Rosh on the tzitz magnet. It says Mikdashi Tiro. So even without the Gzeres HaKosov al Mitzvah Tomid, what do you think? You're going to make a comedy hour in the Beis Hamikdash? The emphasis this shaila is nicht kein Welt's kasha. Say, it's like Kalos Rosh is he's thinking a joke, he's not saying a joke. Mikdashi Tiro means you're not allowed to spit, you're not allowed to make a kapandria, you're not allowed to walk in with a sandwich in your pocket. You can't give as a vitz, machlotzonis, you can't say a joke. But dibur b'maisa, but thinking the mitzvah tomid.
There is a concept of Machshavas Ligu.
So Gabi this we said, okay, so I'm saying this is nicht a Welt's kasha, but still is a kasha. Klemim perik test the broches perik kama divomes ba'afilu laman lamai the pirish test perik gimel the kiddushin shemutel kangar laniach hatzitz al mitzvah afilu b'medina. Let us start b'shavua kosov lahazah shalina kala grosh b'tzitz. It's v'chi balotzitz kala sorosh mishori. Even outside the Beis Hamikdash, shalom meisem moirish shemayim elav v'over pentishkach. It's a shemalakecha. You're not. Yeah. What do you mean? What do you think? What do you think? You think if he's outside the Beis Hamikdash, he's allowed to go and join the chassidim that are drinking a little mashka and eating kichel and herring? What do you think? If he did that, he'd be even peshtish the shemalakecha.
How you can think that in Beit Hamikdash, Kohanim with the Kohen Gadol were working for Hashem?
They would make school kalos.
You can think about it.
Impossible. That's what his question. Convert by the Nazal, b'metish, v'tna nami, b'meseches obis, So the Torah has to tell you a special posik that you shouldn't do Stoik v'kalas roish. Again, this kasha, all the three kashas he has are very shvahe kasha. I'm soon going to give you the real answer. Soon going to give you the real answer for all the kashas from the Shaagos, the one's not based on the Alter Rebbe. But if you take apart every kasha, Nishkin kasha, the kasha that b'mikdashay tiro means b'maisa, not b'machshava. The kasha pentishkach. I'm not sure that if you eat a few kichel and herring, you sit with the chassidim, you make a few jokes. Oiva pentishkach. And this that the Mishnah says, that's a raya against him. Because the Rebbe always says, if you find the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, it has to be miltza the chasidusa. It can't be din Torah. So if it's din Torah, it's not novice. Because Chazal say, you should learn miltza the chasidusa. So if something in the Pirkei Avos is a din, that if you're not going to do it, you're an avarian, it's very hard to say, azoy. There has to be in between. You're telling me if the person's not going to do this, is an apal aved. So if he's going to do is a choset, there's got to be the middle. Everything in Pirkei Avos, that's a shita from the Rebbe. The Rebbe goes through like everything in the mission. Sometimes it sounds like it has to be that alpidin is beseder. Alpidin, like the Chassidim used to sing. Was me, was we sing the Mesnagi, the choset. Was me megmem, was me tarnish darf man euch nicht. That really it's mutter. Maybe the Chassidus, you shouldn't do it because whatever. Should be
the other way around.
Huh?
Not was me tarnish darf man euch.
No, exactly. Was me tor tarnished, and was me meg darf man nicht, right? So I'd say if the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says choik v'galos roish is fakert, it's a chamiltze de chasidusa. The Torah says it's not a before Kohen Gadol. While he's doing the tzitz, it's a ding gomer. So therefore, I can kasha is it's nish. But anyway, we're soon going to answer the Alter Rebbe. The way the Alter Rebbe says, all the kashas are for emphit with one knack. Even if you're going to tell me that the whole thing of kalas roish is only the rabbanon. The tefillin nasun v'etzach shal kalas roish v'kapakam mitzitz. Such a thing of not having kalas roish. Why are you learning from a tzitz? Typically, the balabas also the kalas roish with the rabbanon feel without tefillin. You think that rabbanon will allow you to have kalas roish even without tefillin? Shrei hai kavachem the yolav kes chadas mit tefillin lesser. Kavachem mitzitz elam the rabbanon. Well, he says you have to understand this whole kavachem is only the rabbanon. Oh, kavachem prichri. Because the emes is, if you think about it, he says the Gemara Meg doesn't really mean. Says you can't take it literally. What it says kal v'chomer mitzitz doesn't mean mamish literally a kal v'chomer.
It's really mitzitz.
Huh?
What's brittle mean?
You could slug it up. Lahafriach. You could slug it up. It's slug it upable. So you could slug it up easily. Why? The malatzit shekin Hashem golu. Pembe betfilin shem mechupim ba'ork. Meshkos v'atoises. B'yom Hashem davches. Amadalav del maschaloma. Pirushe dene kal v'chomer goma men atoyra men drabona. Wallahi, kamen namen hidik khomre betzitz tfeim betfilm the pirish mkomak given the iketfilm sat khshiv ze tfei shesh maskor as har besvolu shmenat din yesh lachom latak lamachom kol shat kan. Very cool. He's saying before. Yeah, exactly. He's saying that Tosfos, it's clear from Tosfos that it's not mamisha kal v'chomer because it doesn't make sense to make such a kal v'chomer. The Gemara is just saying the Rabbanon said that they want you not to have Heschadas betfilm. And it's not an Issa de Raisa, it's a de Rabbona. And they said, look, think about it. That's it. The Eibishter was so strict. Reuter says, well, yeah, mitzvah Tomed, extra Tomed means. It's not a Masich Das. And over there's only one mention of Hashem's name. And here it's 26 times in the Shalyad and 26 times in the Shalosh. So it's Mamish. But it's not a Mamish a Kal V'chomer because it's different. Over there it's carved. That was for everyone to see. And over here it's covered. But still, the Rabbanon is bringing something up. But Kalas Roish, Balot Film, Nami, also with the Rabbanon. She says, Bachlal, the whole lineage of Kalas Roish is also with the Rabbanon. How do I know Kalas Roish is also Rabbanon? Probably because he thinks from the Mishnah Pirkei Avos. Ela al korche shma mino the cholas chadas also with film dumi the tzitz also la asir daite moshavte by the love that it must be just like a tzitz as I proved to you. What does it mean as has chadas? You must think that the tzitz is on you. And the same thing, Lagabi film, Vakein das a Rambam b'seyaita. Umasha kosav Rebbeinu Yoina Sheb Divrei Rebbeinu Moshe What's a tiris l'davar? Is there any idea, Mike Omer? Shri Yadu Shestam Rabbeinu Moshe Shehevi Rabbeinu Yoinu or Rambam. But in Medivre Rambam Muchachit just after Liu. Forget it. The Rambam is much more like the Ramban. That Hesach Hadas doesn't mean not to make jokes. Hesach Hadas means you're thinking about the tzitz, you're thinking about the film. Deutsche Rambam Kosev Perik Dal Milchus Film. Chayv Adam Lamashas Betfilm called Man Shem Malov. שלא יסיע דייט מאפיל לרגע אחד. בשוסן גדול למקדושת הציץ. שהציץ אין בעל שם אחד. ואלה יש מוכף א' from size at 26. At 21, השם הוויה בשל ראש, כמוסו בשל יד. ואין הסבר, the call הסך הדס, אוסור בתפילין, וכדברי הרמב"ם, והרמב"ם וסייעתו, וכנ"ל איקר. Okay.
Two questions, Rabbi.
One second before you ask a question. So just summarize. There's the Rosh Rabbeinu Yoina and there's the Rambam Ramban. The way the Shaagos sees it, that it all said it's also to have Hesach Hadas Tefillin. What does it mean Hesach Hadas Tefillin? According to the Rosh Rabbeinu Yoina, it means you're not allowed to make jokes. Schlik v'kalos rosh. And according to the Rambam and the Ramban, it means that no, you have to be that you're thinking. I am now wearing tefillin which has Hashem's name in it.
Culture.
And therefore, on the sheet of the Rosh, so he says it's a stira, and the Shulchan Aruch brings both zapel. How can you bring mazakish Torah lebeitrei? And he says be'emes, I think the halacha should be like the Rambam and the Ramban. Why? Because I have a half a dozen kashas. His first kasha was, according to Rebbeinu Yoina, why does the Torah say to touch it? What is touching? Tell him not to make jokes. And then we learned it from a tzitz. So what do you think? The Kohen Gadol b'shas havodah is going to make jokes? He's going to have schoik kalos roish, steckt doch mikdash tiro. And even if he's not doing avodah, it says pentishkach, and it says schoik kalos roish magilins. So mitzad these three kashas. So here, mitzad these three kashas here. So he says now halach has to be like the Rambam and the Ramban. Okay, what do you want to answer?
Two questions. Number one, when we're putting tefillin, we're not able to talk. So how can I have a sachadat? You're not allowed
Now
to
when you
talk
put
to
it
no.
on.
No, when I have my tefillin on, I try not to see nobody and not to talk to no one. You're not allowed to.
Understand.
So why-
Talking
how-
about
how we
people
gonna
that
ask-
But Hesach Hadas, he's saying the Hesach Hadas means, according to him, it's not good enough that you're not talking to anyone.
You have to touch him. You must.
No, you have to think the whole time that film is on me.
Like the tzitz on the
You have to mamish think the whole time that film is on me.
Okay,
It's
next question is, how come the tefillin is more kedusha than the tzitz?
because that's what
It's
this
not
is.
big there. They didn't have tefillin then.
That's what I say. Very now you're understanding why it's a kal v'chomer pricha. No,
What do you mean they didn't have?
now you understand why it's a kal v'chomer pricha. Sure, that's film. And
Then the Kohen we had.
yeah, the film
Then
and
all
it's at the
the
same
Arba
time.
Rashiyot.
Yes.
Yeah, that's from Beis Hamikdash. That's from already, of course. The mitzvah matorah.
No,
The mitzvah
Gemara
matorah.
sagt, yes, mocken bereich nicht film. It's an anderes.
Some people are.
Yeah. It's anders, yeah.
Mitzvah matorah tefillin.
Okay.
I've seen
it, yeah. Turn the page. I made a copy here of the Alter Rebbe. My father doesn't remember what a pilpul was. I'm sure already what this pilpul was. My Zayda probably went and looked at the Alter Rebbe and saw that the Alter Rebbe in 7 words, Femfet ala Kashas, from the Shaagos Aryeh. I remember my pilpul because my father wrote it to me. It was a sikh of the Rebbe, Tefillin Shel Reish, Tefillin Shel Yad. Leibel's Bar Mitzvah Torah was the previous Shaagos Aryeh. Was tzitz. My thing was the sikha. Yeah. It said the sikha. Tefillin Shel Yad, Tefillin Shel Reish. If it's 1 mitzvah, 2 mitzvahs. Yeah, in Yiddish. Steht sich in Yiddish. Let's read the Alter Rebbe. Moshe, you're going to come with your Bochum Lach when they're Bar Mitzvah to do pilpul?
Yeah.
So before we go weiter,
Which one would
now that we learned the Alter Rebbe, just turn the page. Yeah, Siman Koya. Now, the reason now you understand why the Rebbe asked. Besides, like I was saying, why the Rebbe asked Bar Mitzvah boy, what's kalas rosh? Besides, like saying, he's saying he has a beard, he doesn't have a beard. Like verstehst favos? What's kalas rosh? Is it a chicken or is it a tire? What's kalas rosh? But besides that, because Bemis is this taka the shaila, what's kalas rosh? Like if you learn kalas rosh, you can learn it on in Kalas Rosh Gufa, you can learn many things. Like, you could learn Kalas Rosh being something so terrible that even Chutz Lebeis Hamikdash, it's Osur Min HaTorah. So what are you telling me? This is going against the Oiv Pasuk Mefurish, Pen Tishkechas Hashem Alekecha. Like, what's Kalas Rosh? It's taka, like, yeah. How did what did the Shaagos Aryeh think? Yeah, okay. Anyway, let's learn the Alter Rebbe, and we'll know an answer to the kasha. So if you look in the Alter Rebbe says like this: also lasiach daitem at film called mention Allah. I feel rege echad. Not allowed to stop thinking about the film. I feel rege echad. Kalachem mitzitz matzit shein be'elas kor achas am netoyde. Well, mitzchatomich leise daitem imenu tfil shesh b'askor es har balach kama v'kam. Vein nikra es chadas elo kshem mit b'choy koi b'kalos roish. Oi. Brackets doesn't, by the way, very important thing. We spoke about it many times. Now, Alter Rebbe says brackets, it doesn't mean by the way. Brackets means he's saying a big chiddush, and he wanted to think about the chiddush a second time. And Taka, he wrote a second edition to the Shulchan Aruch. Elamai, we don't have it. Okay. Alter Rebbe says, oi. That he's thinking so much about what his goof needs. What would be an example? I'm going to give already the teretz for the first kasha in my example. The guy is so angry, he's in such anguish that he can't think about nothing but himself. He's thinking about his anguish. He's thinking about his anger. So right now, he's not doing a bad thing, whatever. He just lost a loved one. And it's the third day of Shiva, and he's crying. We're not blaming him. We're just saying a fact that if right now is so toru shelav, as hesach das means shelavovay poinem yirashamayim. So the Alter Rebbe is giving a very different hagdorah to hesach das than the Shaagos Aryeh. Shaagos Aryeh means
Not even a joke.
what does it mean? Hesach das, that I'm not thinking about the tefillin. The Alter Rebbe says no. Hesach Hadas means I'm not thinking about the Eibishter. I'm not thinking about the Eibishter. I'm not thinking about the Eibishter. And how come I'm not thinking about the Eibishter? Either because it's like the Kalas Rosh, I'm making jokes now, or because I'm so tortured with something that Lavavai Poinam Yir Shemayim Achmas Terdose. Aber Kshemet B'Yir Mesakis Av Etzerach Lavav B'Shayis V'Malachtik Uv'Amnosei Vein Daita Latfil Mamish Ein Zen Nikre Hesach Hadas. That's not called Hesach Hadas. Shemloikin in those days, people wore tefillin the whole day. Fakir. Alter Rebbe is going to say fakir. This is one of the eyes. Fakir. The Alter Rebbe says mitzvah men amufcher is the best thing. Shloi lasir daitem klal. The mitzvah men amufcher is to do daka like the Shaagos Aryeh. Klal not to be maser das. Zulus b'shas talmud Torah. When you're learning, think the toisvus. Don't think tefillin. Think toisvus. Ubetfilas chai. When you're wearing Shemona Esrei, don't think tefillin. Think Vekas. Think Eibishter. So even the mitzvah min amufchid is b'chlal not to forget about your tefillin, but b'shas learning, b'shas fishma, then you're not supposed to do the mitzvah min amufchid because you're supposed to get into your learning, you're supposed to get into your davening, and then you do mitzvah stam, not mitzvah min amufchid. That's not because the Alter Rebbe, that's not called hesach hadas. The mitzvah min amufchid is to think now I'm wearing tefillin. But mitzvah stam is as long as I'm not forgetting my Yiddish Shemayim. So if I'm business, I'm making bagels. I'm putting cream cheese on the bagels. I'm putting sprinkling cheese on the pizza. Okay, but doesn't mean levavit poinim Yiddish Shemayim. It's doing l'shem Shemayim b'chol derech echad ha'eyu. Right? I went to a pizza shop in Nice. So they had all kinds of pizzas, different pizzas. I was there. I'm talking many years ago. This was. No, 22 years ago. He still has that. No. The best pizza was the L'Shem Shemayim pizza. When I see some from these, I said they still have the pizza shop. They still have on the menu the L'Shem Shemayim pizza.
But they had that. What was that?
It was all the topics together.
Can you make a bracha on it? Shem Shemayim.
L'Shem Shemayim. Yeah. So a person can do l'shem shemayim. He can even have pizza with all the toppings l'shem shemayim. But the thing is, sometimes a person is so tarud that's the answer. The Alter Rebbe is really answering the shaila from the Shaagos Aryeh. The Shaagos Aryeh said, "How could the Shulchan Aruch paskin like Rebbeinu Yonah and the Rosh and the Rambam?" They said that Hesach Hadas means that you're making jokes, and the Ramban said that if you're in anguish, that's called Hesach Hadas. It's because it's not a contradiction. If a person is in extreme anguish and he's now seeing only his own pain, he's seeing nothing but himself and his pain, and he's wallowing in pain or in anger. So then, Taka, you say that it's Lavove Poinim Yirashamayim Machmas Virdosai because he's so tarud, and that answers all the other questions you're asking. What does the Eibushter have to tell that the Kohen Gadol? What do you think the Kohen Gadol is standing and doing avoid and he's making jokes? He's listening to a podcast from Jackie Mason. What means that? No, Alas Rosh is only a Heche Timtza. Making jokes is not the only thing. The Alter Rebbe says Hesach Hadas doesn't only mean making jokes. It means Levove Poinim Yiddish Shemayim. It could be Levove Poinim Yiddish Shemayim. So he's thinking about the avodah. He's not thinking about Yerushalayim. So if that's why the Torah says it has to be Tomit. So all the kashas from the Shaagos Aryeh is for Emfet, according to the Alter Rebbe. Everything is alts and for Emfet. It's very nice. It's very native.
So it's not machshavot zarot Hesach Hadas, not at all. That's lower level.
Yeah, that's lower level. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining what Rebbeinu Yonah said. So the Shaagos Aryeh thinks that according to Rebbe Yonah, Hesach Hadas means you're making jokes, or you're sitting with the chassidim and you're having herring and kichlach, you're having sushi. I'm laughing because of Shaagos Aryeh. I'm imagining what. So, but the Alter Rebbe is saying that, and the Shaagos Aryeh holds no. The highest level. What does it mean, Hesach Hadas? That you're thinking right now, I'm wearing tefillin that has the Eibish's name. The Eibish's name is Ami. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, no, that's very good. It's a mitzvah and a mufchar. But even that, you shouldn't, when you're learning and you're davening, you shouldn't do it. But what's taking me not to have Hesach Hadas? They should always have a tinge of Yiddish Shemayim. Whatever you're doing, those days they used to wear tefillin the whole day. So he's in the pizza shop, he's in the bagel store, he's on the train, he's on the subway, he's in the house, he's cooking, he's walking, he's jogging, he's coming, he's on the business. But his Yiddish Shemayim is with him 24/7. He's you know. So that's the pshat according to the Alter Rebbe. Yid always has to be that whatever he's doing, a little bit, there is such a thing that he knows that there's Yiddish Shemayim, and a person is so taught that he forgot about it altogether. So that's the story. That there was two guys they met after many years, and he saw his friend became a chassid. So he said, "You became a chassid. Why did you become a chassid?" He said, "Now because I know what people think. I can tell what people think." So he says, "Yeah, tell me what I'm thinking." He says, "You're thinking now about the Eibishter." He says, you got it wrong. 22 years, I didn't think about it even once. He says, "That's why you should learn Chassidus." So I know I told the story, but I like the story. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that's Hesach Hadas. Yes. There could be a person is busy, he's doing things, but he still, this Levava is on Yiddish Shemayim. But if a person's Taka Levava, he's so porud, he's so, like you say in business, I was just the other day, someone was asking me, like, on the one hand, we say that a person should only work with his hands. But on the other hand, we say, what do you mean? A person only should work with his hands? What do you mean? A person has to sometimes use his head also. You're not supposed. We're saying that
Maybe he uses his legs.
Okay, halavai. If you could do that, some people have to work and that in the cup. What's to count how much pills you put in and how much the proportion is? That's in the cup, huh? You only get all the cup. It says who knows in the koil and the Targum says the Eibishter gave you the chochma likness nichsen. Okay, so you're supposed to use the chochma. And now you're supposed to know the Eibishter gave you chochma. So someone asked me, it's like, which one is it? The answer is, sometimes if you're a pharmacist, you have to know what the proportion is, but not in the cup. But how much of your cup is in it Is it so much that you're so taught? You're like the story of that's the story of the Rebbe Rashab. The guy came and is talking about his business and his factory, and he's making the best boots in town. So the Rebbe Rashab said, "Ich gesehen Fiss in Koloshen, about Kop in Koloshen. I saw people have feet in their boots. By you, I see your head is in your boots." That's the shot. That he's so taught that his whole head was in his factory with the boots. But doesn't the Rebbe Rashab didn't mean to say go back and just the factory will go like this and you're learning. No, that's not what the Rebbe Rashab meant. Versteht sich, he's gonna do what he has to do. But it shouldn't be that he's so total den ganzen vergessen, ein jedes Hashim lo negedenu. So, l'chaim, today's a special birthday. That someone that Taka Zoy, he works, and he Taka works, and the Vodaya, I drive by the cleaners, but a lot of times I notice that there's a colorful booklet in his hand called Advar Malchus. So that's the Indian. The Indian is that the Eibishter wants it. Huh? I'm not sure he agrees. It's Nakia. It's Nakia. I'm not sure Shmulik agrees it's Kala. So l'chaim.
It's only my hand, not my head.
So l'chaim, the Taka, every one of us. We should be able.
You don't look 40 years. You don't look
Yeah.
40 at all.
We should
I'm
we should be able to do whatever we do. We should do it.
You have a good one.
בשמחה.
You hear? That's a bracha. Emetz Hashem. You hear that? You hear? You hear? L'chaim.
Yeah, man.
The Baal Yom Haledes is giving you a bracha. L'chaim.
Happy birthday. Whatever, just
I've been.
Second, I'm just going to thank you everyone that joins us.
perfect.
Okay, have a great day.